last Saturday night, while you were scrolling, while markets were closed, Donald Trump pressed a button. 8 European countries were targeted, not with missiles, with money: Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Finland, a 10% tariff effective February 1st, escalating to 25% by June 1st. The reason given on TV: solidarity with Greenland. The real reason: control. Less than 50 soldiers landed in Greenland. Symbolic, harmless, almost theatrical. And yet within 72 hours, a trade war threat worth hundreds of billions of dollars was activated. Think about that. While you were enjoying your weekend, a $100 billion geopolitical lever quietly changed hands. European leaders rushed into an emergency meeting in Brussels. They spoke about unity. They spoke about international law, words. Meanwhile, Trump went on Truth Social. He invoked NATO. He invoked Russia. He declared, now it is time, and it will be done. No vote, no debate, no headlines screaming panic, just tariffs, deadlines, and a ticking clock. This wasn't about Greenland, and it definitely wasn't about defense. It was about who controls what comes next. And nobody is talking about what it actually means. This is not politics. Politics is the story they sell you. What you're watching is an operating system, a repeatable process, refined over decades, executed by the same names. Step 1, isolation. Money first, always money first. Tariffs, sanctions. They blocked payment rails. When Donald Trump announces 25% tariffs, he's not negotiating. He's severing arteries. Banks hesitate. Insurers back away. Supply chains stall within days, not months. No tanks required. Step 2, demonization. The target is never a country. It's a leader. Irresponsible, weak, unable to defend territory. Denmark didn't fail. Denmark was framed as failing. Greenland wasn't threatened. It was declared endangered. This is how consent is manufactured. Step 3, intervention. Not invasion, insertion. Emergency summits, back-channel calls, constructive engagement. Watch the calendar. February 1st, June 1st, February 6th. Deadlines compress decision-making. Mistakes are forced. Resistance fractures. The target starts negotiating against itself. Step 4, extraction. This is the part you never see on the news, because extraction doesn't look violent. It looks like paperwork. Licensing frameworks, security guarantees, joint development agreements, 99-year leases, resource corridors, strategic basing rights. By the time journalists notice, the contracts are already signed. This system doesn't care who's president. It ran under George W. Bush. It survived Barack Obama. It adapted under Joe Biden. Now Trump is running it louder, faster, with fewer apologies. Greenland is not the story. The story is that stage 1 is complete, publicly, on schedule. And when you recognize the OS, you start seeing it everywhere. Different flag, same sequence: isolation, demonization, intervention, extraction. The machine doesn't improvise, it executes. You've seen this before, even if you don't remember being told. They always erase the beginning and sell you the ending. Let's rewind. Iraq, 2000, before the invasion, before the lies, before the shock and awe. Saddam Hussein made a decision that never made the headlines loud enough. He announced Iraq would sell oil in euros, not US dollars. At the time, Iraq controlled over 115 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, one of the largest pools on earth. Oil priced in euros wasn't symbolic. It was structural sabotage, because the petrodollar isn't an idea, it's a system. Break it once, and every oil-producing nation notices. Stage 1 followed immediately. Isolation, sanctions tightened, Banking channels froze. Iraq was cut off from SWIFT before SWIFT was a household word. Then came stage 2, demonization, weapons of mass destruction, chemical threats, links to terrorism, none proven, all repeated. By the time Colin Powell held up a vial at the UN, the verdict was already decided. Stage 3 was fast. March 2003, shock and awe, Baghdad fell in 21 days. No serious resistance, no drawn-out negotiation, and then silence. Because stage 4 doesn't need cameras. Extraction. Within 18 months, oil contracts were quietly awarded. ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP, Shell, production sharing agreements, written under occupation. Iraq didn't regain control of its oil revenues. It licensed them out for decades. The euro experiment ended. The dollar was restored. Now Libya, this one scared them more. Because Muammar Gaddafi wasn't just selling oil, he was rewriting money. Libya held 143 tons of gold and vast reserves of silver. Gaddafi proposed the gold dinar, a Pan-African currency, backed by metal, not debt, oil for gold, gas for gold, no IMF, no World Bank, no dollar. That wasn't rebellion, that was contagion. Stage 1 arrived fast. Isolation, sanctions, asset freezes, Libyan sovereign funds locked out of Western banks, over $150 billion immobilized overnight. Stage 2 was surgical, demonization, madman, massacre, genocide, every protest amplified, every rumor weaponized. The word humanitarian was repeated until it lost meaning. Stage 3 didn't look like Iraq. It looked cleaner. NATO airstrikes, no-fly zone, responsibility to protect. In reality, command and control nodes destroyed in weeks. Gaddafi hunted, captured, dragged, executed on camera, and then nothing. Nothing, no rebuilding, no democracy, no stability. But stage 4 happened anyway. Extraction. Libya's gold vanished. Those 143 tons were never recovered. Oil fields were reopened. Licenses redistributed. Western firms returned. African monetary unity died quietly. Libya collapsed into militias. Not a failure, a feature, because chaos doesn't resist contracts. Order does. Look at the pattern again. Leader challenges the system. Money is cut, image is destroyed, force is applied, resources change hands, different decade, same script, the names change, the OS doesn't, and once you see the blood trail, you stop believing in coincidence. This machine doesn't punish bad leaders, it neutralizes bad precedents. Now bring it back to the present, because the past only matters if it's repeating, and it is. Look at the signals, not the speeches. Greenland isn't being defended. It's being priced. Behind closed doors at the White House, this wasn't framed as sovereignty. It was framed as risk management. Rare earth minerals, Arctic shipping lanes, untapped offshore oil blocks. Greenland sits on an estimated 38.5 million tons of rare earth oxides, critical for F-35 SATs, hypersonic missiles, AI chips. China knows it, so does Trump. Stage 1 is already visible. Isolation. Tariffs announced, trade votes frozen. The EU Parliament trade deal scheduled for a vote in 10 days is now politically radioactive. Money pauses, certainty disappears. That's not chaos. That's pressure. Stage 2 followed immediately. Demonization. Denmark is labeled unable. Europe is framed as weak. Scott Bessent says it out loud. The Europeans project weakness. The US projects strength. That's not rhetoric. That's justification. Stage 3 is forming in real time. Not invasion. Insertion. Emergency EU meetings. NATO language invoked. Trump links Greenland to Russia. That's the switch. Once Russia enters the sentence, extraordinary measures become necessary. Watch the dates. February 1st, Tariffs begin February 6th, EU retaliation deadline, June 1st, tariffs jump to 25%, decision windows collapse. Now ask the only question that matters: what happens next? Stage 4 never announces itself, but the hints are already there. Quiet conversations about security partnerships, joint development, 99-year land leases for ports, expanded U.S. basing rights, licensing frameworks for mineral extraction under defense cooperation. Don't look at talk of peace, look at who's being quietly exempted. Sanctions softened for Chevron, exploration language reappearing. Halliburton mentioned again. This isn't about flags, it's about control of choke points before the Arctic melts enough to matter. Greenland isn't the prize, it's the corridor, and the OS is already running, stage by stage, deadline by deadline. Now here's where it stops being abstract, because this isn't about Greenland, or Trump, or Europe, it's about you. When pipelines reopen and shipping lanes unlock, the headline says stability. Your wallet hears something else. If Arctic routes shorten transit by 30%, fuel costs drop. At the pump, gas might fall 20 to 30 cents. You'll feel relieved. That relief is the trap, because while you're celebrating cheaper fuel, capital is moving. Energy equities don't like abundance, they like scarcity. If Greenland's offshore blocks come online, ExxonMobil doesn't need your optimism. It needs volume, and volume kills margins. Your energy ETF, down 8 to 12% in a quarter. Your pension fund exposure to oil majors, quietly rebalanced, not in your favor. Now look deeper. Rare earths don't hit consumers directly, they hit supply chains. If 38.5 million tons of Greenland minerals are licensed under U.S. defense frameworks, chip makers get priority access, everyone else pays premiums. That shows up as inflation, not tomorrow, in 6 to 9 months. Your phone costs more, your car costs more, your repair bill jumps 15%, and nobody connects it to Greenland because they'll blame global factors. They always do. Meanwhile, capital flows into what never makes the evening news: ports, rail corridors, mineral processing hubs, assets with 99-year leases. You're told peace has returned, but peace doesn't require long-term extraction contracts. Stability doesn't need emergency tariff deadlines. This system isn't designed to hurt you personally. That's just collateral. It's designed to reprice the world before you notice. So don't watch speeches, watch balance sheets, don't listen for peace. Listen for who gets paid, because by the time the OS reaches stage 4, your options are already locked in. This is the part where people argue. They say it's exaggerated, they say it's coincidence, they say it's just politics. That reaction is built in, because the system doesn't rely on belief, it relies on momentum. By the time you're debating motives, deadlines have passed, contracts are signed, assets are reclassified. You don't get a vote on that. The pattern doesn't ask if you agree. It doesn't care which side you're on. It runs under Democrats. It runs under Republicans. It ran before Donald Trump, and it will run after him, because it isn't a man. It's an operating logic. Once isolation begins, demonization follows. Once demonization sticks, intervention becomes necessary. Once intervention happens, extraction is framed as reconstruction. Every time the names change, the flags change, the sequence doesn't. If you're waiting for a headline that says this is the moment everything changed, you already missed it. It happened quietly, over a weekend, with tariffs, with deadlines, with paperwork. And if you don't train yourself to recognize the pattern early, you don't get to avoid the damage. You just absorb it. The pattern doesn't care if you believe in it. It doesn't need your permission. It just unfolds. Subscribe if you don't want to become collateral damage in the next stage.